Hello, this is Professor Marsh, and this is the third lesson in our course for the VITA Volunteer Training Program. We're going to be going through some information that we just touched on in lesson number 2, which was about the intake, interview, and quality review standards, and also the first lesson, which was the VITA Volunteer Standard of Conduct. So our ethics lesson was first, our quality control for customer service was second, and now we're getting into the basics of whether or not a taxpayer needs to file a tax return or should file a tax return, and you'll remember we talked about that in the last video. In preparing this material, there is a lesson plan which is available to you at VITA TCE Central, which you might want to use to follow along. There's also a set of PowerPoint slides, which you might want to follow if you prefer those during this lecture. And then what we'll also do is review the Filing Basics Workout, which is the third IRS workout that you'll find at VITA TCE Central. And so those are our three sets of materials. If you have any trouble accessing them, please let me know. I will be posting a copy of those materials in the Wolf Den website for Newberry College students. If you don't have access to that for any reason, let me know, and I'll be happy to forward a copy of those materials to you. So let's go ahead and get started. And to get started, what I'd like to do is to go through the Filing Basics lesson plan. And this is just a brief introduction where we're going to determine who has to file a tax return, who should file a tax return, how to verify the taxpayer's identity, and determine how to file the return. Those are all important questions. So we're going to have some key terms to review. ATIN, ATIN in all caps, is the Adoption Taxpayer Identification Number. It's issued by the IRS while a final domestic adoption is pending and the child does not yet have a Social Security number. You need to have a Social Security number for a child or an ATIN in order to qualify for certain benefits, including some of the refundable credits. A dependent is an individual who may be claimed as a dependent on another person's tax return. That is someone who meets all the applicable dependency tests, and we'll have a lesson on that in, I think, maybe maybe 3 more lessons after this, so lesson number 6. Gross income is all income received in the form of money, goods, property, and services that is not exempt from tax. The tax code defines it as all income realized from all services in whatever form, and that's maybe a shorthand description of the terms in the tax code, but it's a very broad definition of income is included in gross income. And then an ITIN, ITIN in all caps, is an individual taxpayer identification number, and that's issued by the IRS to individuals who are not eligible for a Social Security number. And then a tax credit is a dollar-for-dollar reduction in the tax. It can be directly deducted from the taxes owed, and in some cases, if it exceeds the amount of the taxes owed, it can be refundable. So there are non-refundable and refundable tax credits, and we will learn about those as we go along. So what we're going to do is we're going to, as we do this, we're going to take a look at the Tax Slayer demo, and I'm going to ask you to, if you haven't already done that demo, to click on it and to spend some time reviewing that. Click on the appropriate demo for the Tax Slayer IRS training. And if you need to stop and do that, go ahead and pause this right now and then come back to this after you've done the demo at the TaxSlayer website. So please, you can find the link to that at the VITA TCE Central, and take a look at that, and then come back to this presentation. On the internet, you've got the link and learn taxes filing basics. We're going to go through that workout in just a short while, and just ask you to go through those examples and the sample intervals, and then review the answers as you do that. And if you come to the wrong answer, then look at the correct answer and read the explanations. And so sometimes it's helpful just to, you're not being graded as you go through this. So if you've clicked on the wrong answer, maybe read all three of the answers, and it will help you understand the topic and maybe make you more familiar with some of the terms that you may just be getting used to now. Okay, so some of the specific tips we have we've got a presentation aid. There's a form you can click on or to download at the IRS. That's form 13614-C, and it has parts 1 through 3. That is our intake form at the VITA Volunteer Clinics. And so this is the form that we complete when we do an intake, and we learned about that in the last lesson, in lesson number 2, but we're also reviewing it now. So we have a client in front of us, and the first thing that we do is we take a look at what they brought if they brought us the information that we've requested. Remember, there's a list of the requested information in the form 3676B, and then there's also a separate form that lists that information that you can send to prospective taxpayers so that they're ready when they come to see you to get their taxes done. And we use that information that they bring in with their answers to complete the form 13614-C. Then there's also in publication 4012, which is the publication that gives you a lot of the detail about TaxSlayer and entering the information into TaxSlayer. You also can see some of that, guidelines as far as who has to file a tax return. So let's go to that now. And in publication 40-12, what you'll see are charts A, B, and C. And these charts are basically decision trees that tell you whether or not the taxpayer, because of their income and other status such as age, blindness, how many dependents they have, or whether they themselves are a dependent, if they need to file a tax return. And so take a look at charts A, B, and C as you do some of these case studies. And then also you can take a look at the IRS has a website called the Interactive Tax Assistant, and that has a interactive site that helps you determine if you're required to file a tax return. But again, whether or not you're required to file a tax return doesn't mean if you're not required that you shouldn't file a tax return. Many people that we will be serving in the VITA Volunteer Clinics will be people who don't have to file a tax return, but who should because they're entitled to a refund, or perhaps they're entitled to a refundable credit, which could be paid to them under the terms of the tax law. So those are all important things. So that is chart D. Take a look at chart D and whether or not there are other situations in which the taxpayer will want to file, even if they're not required to. And I'm going to take a short break right now to wet my throat and get ready for the rest of the material. And we're about halfway through the lesson plan. So verifying taxpayer identity. take a look at the Form 13614-C and also Publication 4012 and make sure that you're aware that as you verify the taxpayer identity, if it turns out that someone has already filed a tax return for this particular taxpayer, to remind the students that identity theft can occur during tax time. It is important to verify the taxpayer's identity. So just be careful to make sure that you're not working with somebody who might prospectively be an identity thief, that you can verify their identity with appropriate documents. And then also, if you're in a situation in which you find out that you have a taxpayer whose identity has been stolen, you will find resources here on how to deal with those situations. And those resources are in Publication 4012 and also on the internet at the Taxpayer Guide to Identity Theft, which is a page at the IRS's website. There's also a YouTube video regarding the individual taxpayer identification number, which may be an acceptable alternative to a Social Security number for a particular taxpayer. So there are people who are in the country who don't have Social Security numbers and aren't entitled to get one for whatever reason because of their residency and citizenship status or lack of citizenship status. And so for those who have to file a tax return, we oftentimes will assist them in getting an ITIN. Okay, so that's basically the material for the filing basics, and you'll also see additional resources that you have in the lesson plan. These are all hot links that you can access, and I will commend them to you and also suggest that you, again, practice the tax layer demos as often as you feel as though you need to. So you will see at the Interactive Tax Assistant that you have aids at the IRS about specific questions. Do I need to file a tax return? What are the filing requirements? And then also the Taxpayer Guide to Identity Theft, which are all there at the IRS's website at www.irs.gov. Okay, now let's go back to the Link and Learn Taxes website and go to the Filing Basics workout. Now, I've discussed this previously in lesson number 2, so I'm not going to discuss it in detail. If you want to hear my commentary regarding these filing basics in its fullest form, then go ahead and go back to the lesson number 2 discussion. But it would certainly benefit you to go through the filing basics again. It starts with a referral to Publication 4491, which you will remember has some of the information about filing basics as well as other information to review for the VITA program. And then it takes you sort of page by page and box by box to make sure that you kind of learned the key boxes that need to be completed when you're filling out the 13614-C intake form. And so it's got a link of all the filing requirements, aids from Publication 4012. Those are all hot links to that publication, to the appropriate pages. And then if you haven't already done this, or if you want to review this one more time, take a look at the skills warm-up, the various case studies that are in this filing basics workout, and go through them and check your answers against the answers that are provided for by the IRS. Go through the case studies on most likely filing status. Those are very important. And then also who must file. We're going to have more about filing status in one of the next videos. So I think that's video number 4. I'm also going to post some materials in the next day or two for returning preparers as far as the important changes during this past year, and then also the premium tax credit, because oftentimes the premium tax credit is claimed during or at the beginning of the year as people are signing up for their coverage under the Affordable Care Act at the marketplace. And so there may be some issues with respect to the premium tax credit or to changes for prior years, which may be important to the returning preparers, and also important to people who are just trying to learn about taxes and need to know what to do with respect to the premium tax credit, because that's a decision that's typically made, as many as 15 months in advance of when the tax return to report that particular premium tax credit is due. So you may receive a refund of the premium tax credit when you sign up in the marketplace in December, and then not have to account for it until April of not the following year, but the year after that. So again, 15 or 16 months later. So anyhow, that's it for today. Good luck with your study. Again, feel free to contact me if you have any questions. You have my email addresses both at the college and at my law firm. Probably the college is the best place to reach me with an email. If you need to call me, you have my cell phone number, and please don't hesitate if you have any questions. So have a great day, and we'll talk with you again soon. That's it for today. Bye-bye.